Folks, welcome to Beauty's Cafe in Grafton Street, where it all began many moons ago. I'm here in my old alma mater, Beauty's Cafe on Grafton Street, the most famous cafe in Ireland, wonderful institution that it is. I'm here with Dr. Sinead Kane, who's come to join me for a coffee with Colin. Sinead, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much for having me.
Lovely to meet you here. So Sinead, Dr. Sinead Kane, many of our viewers will know who Dr. Sinead Kane is, and I'm sure there are some out there who haven't yet met you. So will you just give us a potted history? Who is Dr. Sinead Kane?
Well, I'm a double PhD doctorate. I'm double Guinness World Record holder, qualified solicitor, certified mediator, writer with the Irish Criminal Law Journal, consultant, and then I run my own business as well, self-employed. So speaking is mainly my business. I mostly speak for companies in Ireland, and recently I've been speaking abroad, doing work in, say, places like Sweden, Austria and Boston.
My goodness, that's some potted history, and I thought I was busy until I heard your resume.
Yeah.
That's some list of achievements.
Yeah, well, I suppose with being qualified solicitor, I qualified as Ireland's first visually impaired solicitor in 2009, and I suppose that's 10 years ago now, and it feels like a lifetime ago, but to get to it was a lot of hard work and passion. And I'm not practicing as a solicitor at the moment because I'm doing my speaking full time, but I do, say, a small bit of consultancy work. But like, I'm not saying never that I'm not going back to it, because I suppose a problem with me is I want to do everything. So I want to be practicing as a solicitor, I want to be a full-time speaker, I want to be a full-time ultra runner, I want to be full-time doing everything. So I suppose you can't spread yourself too thinly. So I will go back to it. I think the days are long and gone of just having one job, 9 to 5, and I think that's the beauty of it, that actually I, with a disability, have a lot of options open to me, whereas a lot of people might not have options. So I'm very grateful for the options that I do have, because I believe education is power, knowledge is power, and I think that you can learn a lot by having a variety of different jobs. I've learned a lot through my running, a lot more than what I would maybe in a textbook. I've learned a lot more about life through meeting people. So you learn different things through having a varied career.
You see, your resume is already impressive enough, and then you throw in the little caveat, oh yeah, I'm visually impaired as well. So, you know, the rest of us are thinking, my goodness, how does this woman do it all? And may I ask, decided to become a lawyer and knowing it was going to be very difficult because you were visually impaired, was the visual impairment part of your motivation, that you wanted to prove to yourself and perhaps to others that people with some disability can actually go on and do great things?
Well, an aha moment in my life has been where my careers advisor teacher told me at age 17 that I couldn't study law. I went into her and I told her that I wanted to study law, and she's, I suppose, very seriously told me, like, I don't think you can do that. Law is a reading-based subject, and for me then it was like, well, I'm going to pursue this. I'm not going to allow your, I suppose, limitations control my destiny. So that was when the pendulum swung for me around when I was 17, because up to the age of 17 I was a very introvert, very low self-esteem, low confidence. I stand up, I do many speeches for schools, like my largest audience has been 7,500 at the Tree Arena for students, Cycle Against Suicide. And then my smallest number would be maybe 10 people in a room. So I've spoken for large and small audiences, and people would say, oh, you're a very good speaker, but I haven't always been that. As I say, my aha moment was at 17. Before that, I was a very different person to what I am now.
It's incredible, and it's a great story. And do you mind me asking, does that careers guidance teacher, is he or she following your career with interest?
I don't know, is that person even still alive or anything? But I suppose I don't kind of look up that person or anything.
I get that.
I was very badly bullied in school. People have friend requests to me on Facebook. Again, I haven't accepted their friend requests, but I suppose in my heart I do forgive them, but I don't feel that I have to be around them.
That makes perfect sense. No, well said. And you know, bullying unfortunately is a fact of life.
Very prevalent, yeah.
Very prevalent, and the more we can do to highlight it and spotlight it, I think the better. Delighted because of my day job, as you know, is school lunches. So I like you have the opportunity to go and speak to kids, but I think your story is quite much more interesting because they're looking at somebody who's made a go of herself despite a disability.
Yeah, well, my PhD actually was on the area of bullying, so it was interdisciplinary education and law at secondary school teachers' duty of care inside and outside of school regarding bullying. Wow. So yeah, that was my PhD, and I suppose it's kind of weird that how I was extremely badly bullied and then went to the point of then ending up doing a PhD on the topic of bullying.
But are they not all linked? You know, if you think your aha moment was your career as guidance teacher saying you can't, and the fact that you were bullied, you sort of said, well, I can do something about that by...
But like, I suppose for me, when I did my law degree and then followed my masters in law, both done in UCC, fantastic university, and
plug there.
Yeah, but I suppose after I did my masters, I said, right, that's me done with education. I'm now, my master's done, I'm now going on to do my traineeship, my solicitor, and after that, that's me finished, completely finished with college, because actually at the time when I finished my masters, my dad said, would you ever consider a PhD? And that was back in 2005, and I said, never ever will I do a PhD, and now I have 2 PhDs. So like, I suppose moral of that story is never say never, because that was in 2005 and I started my academic PhD in 2013. Wow. So you just don't know kind of what life has in store for you. Yeah,
for sure. And you know, your dad asked you, would you do a PhD? And you said no, so you did 2.
Yeah, I got an academic and an honorary. So I got the honorary in October 2017 from the NUI, National University of Ireland, and I suppose that's with all the activism work that I've done and community work. And then I got the academic then in January 2018. So I suppose I got the honorary before the academic one, and I kind of said to myself, oh sure, I've got the academic one now, I've got the title, I don't have to finish out the academic one, but
you did.
You have to do the hard.
You actually, speaking of plugs, you and I reconnected at the Pendulum Summit, Frankie Sheehan's Pendulum Summit recently in Dublin again. How was that for you?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's nice to go to that type of event where you have like-minded people, great event to start off the year. I think so many of us recharge our phones, but none of us really recharge ourselves.
Wow.
And I think it's even the most positive people have to recharge themselves on a daily basis. And I suppose that's why I'm very mindful to do things like such as read affirmation quotes, watch TED Talks, or in my case listen to them on YouTube, because like we are all into the physical exercise, but we really have to concentrate on nourishing the brain, and I think so many of us just take it for granted. Oh, I don't have to do it, but you do have to work on it, just like your physical. Yeah,
I would agree. I think what we saw there were thousands of leaders, and leadership doesn't happen by accident. It's a decision, and we prepare ourselves for leadership. So it's great. May I ask then, what is your daily routine around that?
So I suppose when I get up in the morning time, I try not to go to the phone straight away. Obviously I have the phone there and I switch off the alarm, but I purposely don't kind of start reading emails or texts straight away. I just switch off the alarm once I get out of the bed, leave the phone to the side, and that kind of signals to me I'm not held captive or slave to my phone.
Well said.
And I suppose my main focus then is my nutrition, like getting in my protein drink, or like eggs. I suppose I'm vegetarian, I don't eat fish or meat. It's important in terms of the running for me to keep maintaining my muscle, because obviously if I'm doing so much exercise, the last thing you want to do is your muscle to be wasting away, because then the exercise you're doing isn't worth it. But so I try and focus on my nutrition, and then I suppose I try like we can all watch the news and we can get very upset by the news. So I kind of think about maybe ringing my family member. If my family member isn't around, I read an affirmation quote, and I kind of ask myself, well, what am I grateful for today?
Wow.
And I, like, a lot of people talk about meditation, and I suppose I've tried meditation in the past, sitting on the floor and just in bare silence, and some days it works and some days it doesn't work.
Very honest.
So on the days where it doesn't work, so I don't have that daily routine, I every single day sit down. So what I kind of do is, whether I'm in the bathroom or whether I'm just walking around the hall, I kind of be asking myself questions in my head. What am I grateful for today? Because I think a lot of people think, say, in terms of like vision impairment, oh, that only affects her, she's visually impaired since birth, that only affects her. But like, anybody can become visually impaired through accident or illness.
Okay.
And so, and I suppose like some days I don't want to go running. Have the treadmill record for furthest distance for a female on a treadmill.
Of course you do.
In 12 hours. But like, even though I have that, some days I find it a struggle to go out and do 5k or 10k.
Wow.
And then on those days when I find it a struggle to go out and do 5k or 10k, I kind of say to myself, snap out of it, Sinead. There's people out there who would love to go for a run, but they can't through accident or illness. And here you're complaining about you've the opportunity. So I try and rephrase things in my head when I feel that I'm starting to become a bit negative, or I suppose if I'm feeling angry about something, I just try and maybe listen to a happy song. And I think getting out in the outside into nature, I think getting out is really important. And for me as well, I'm the type of person who, about habits. So like, when I get up, like, I can't leave the house unless I know my bed is made.
Okay.
Because for me, the day only starts when the bed is made.
Yeah, very good,
And then like, I also like to have the bed aired. So that kind of takes a process of making sure the bed is aired and then going back to make it. So like, because I think if you leave your duvet to the side, then there's always that open door opportunity to get back into bed and snooze for the day. Like, if you're feeling feeling sorry for yourself, or I suppose my kind of daily work is I'm not doing speaking every single day. I'm self-employed, so it doesn't matter to people if I get back into bed.
Yes.
But for me, because I'm trying to earn a wage, it matters to me. So
well done,
I have to have the bed made.
Powerful.
So that's when
powerful
the day
stuff.
begins.
Can I ask, if I may, a highlight since you started on this journey, and particularly because speaking is your profession now, professionally speaking, have you a particular highlight, one particular moment on stage or in front of a group that stands out for you?
Just in terms of speaking, is it?
It doesn't have to be speaking. I'm just. Have you anything in particular?
Like, I suppose different highlights for me would be, throughout my life, would be when I did a TEDx talk. That would be one, about the topic of bullying, and how I believe you should be stand up to bullying and not be a bystander. That'd be one moment. Obviously, another moment would be when I got the opportunity to talk to 7,500 people.
Fantastic.
And for them all to hear my story. Another opportunity was going to Antarctica, doing the World Marathon Challenge, 7 marathons, 7 continents, within 7 days, 6 days, 9 hours, running in the Atacama Desert, the driest desert in the world. And I suppose just actually qualifying as a solicitor, because that was a very happy day and a sad day for me. Because a happy day because I was always told I wouldn't get there. A sad day because I suppose on that day, like, I suppose everybody could see me on the news and qualifying, but like, I suppose some people who were in my life who are visually impaired, they couldn't see me. And I didn't really care about being on the news. I just wanted them to be able to see me. But
my goodness.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of standout moments for me. Another moment was in second year in UCC when I was finding it extremely tough. My parents brought me to London for a shopping trip. I thought I was going on a shopping trip. I didn't end up going on a shopping trip. I went to meet a judge who was totally blind.
Oh, wow.
And I suppose that he was a role model to me, and I think we all need role models in our life, and I think any of us whether we realise it or not, every time you encounter somebody, you can be a role model to them through your actions, through your words. Like even when I came back from the World Marathon Challenge, there was the Allianz Ireland had a TV advert about me. Mm-hmm. And so I was being recognised a lot. Mm-hmm. And one particular night, it was very cold, dark, raining, mm-hmm. I was tired, I was hungry, mm-hmm. And it was 9:30 at night, pitch black, and I was coming back from a supermarket, and these two little girls, I don't know, they might have been about 7 or 9, said to their mother, said, Mammy, there's a girl from the Allianz ad. Wow. So these two girls wanted to come over and have a full-blown conversation with me, and like it was 9:30 at night now, and I was cold, tired, right. And I was not informed right. for talking to people about goal setting or mindset or being a role model. But I suppose at the back of my mind I had to say to myself, right, well, did that judge say that to you when he became your role model in second year UCC? Yeah. So like I suppose I stood there and I did the gracious thing and I talked to them, even though I wasn't on form. And I think that when you've been afforded kind of opportunity to be inspired, then you should try and inspire.
I think that's a wonderful story, because I think we were talking about this just before we started the programme, and we were talking about some of the stuff that we've all got to face, and I just think it's great. I think that you identified that you were in that moment, that you really didn't want this to happen, but it has done, and you're back to your being grateful, rather than being put out. You decided to be grateful for the opportunity. Somebody had done it for you, so you did it for them, so well done. May I ask you a question, if I may, because we've all had them. Your most embarrassing moment, if you'd like to share that with us.
I think one of my most embarrassing moments was, I've had many in terms of academic and in terms of running. I suppose in terms of running, one of my most embarrassing moments was when I did my first marathon in October 2014, and my run coach John, who I met in October 2014, I met him for the first time then, and basically I had a sore knee at the time, and somebody recommended me to go to him, mm-hmm. that he might have known somebody who could have fixed my knee, that he'd recommend me on then to an important right person. And as well as that, John has done a lot of work with Mark Pollock and has guided Mark Pollock. Wow. And a lot of people would know the story of Mark Pollock. Of course, yeah. So I'm visually impaired, Mark's visually impaired. So I suppose I was going to John as well to ask him for advice about my first marathon, mm-hmm. with a guide runner. So I just met John anyway, and at the end of the meeting, he said to me, have you any more questions? Okay. And then about running, about guide running or anything, and I kind of said, well, do you know now, if it's raining on the day of the marathon, the Dublin Marathon, will they cancel the marathon? Okay. So he kind of looked at me as if to say, like, is this girl being serious? And like, I was being serious, but then I knew that he thought that was a stupid question. So I had to pretend that I was only joking, but I actually still wanted the answer to the question. Right. So he then kind of firmly told me, when he realised that I was serious, he said, Sinead, 3 things in relation to the Dublin Marathon. First thing is, this event happens every single year, and the minute one finishes, they start organising it again. So it's not an event that just happens. It's a year-long preparation. Fantastic. Second thing then is, over 15,000 people compete in this event. And third thing is, you're living in a country where it all the time rains. So I then just kind of said, oh right, okay, and so that'll just show you how clueless I was to running. And then like literally 4 weeks later, when I started training for my first ultra marathon, my first 50k, strangely I was out in the track for 4 hours running around in the rain. Wow, and this is a girl who was frightened to do a marathon in the rain. So I suppose it just shows that even though that situation was embarrassing, you learn things about different experiences by going through the experience. Another experience I had was when I was going to the Atacama Desert. Fear stops us from doing our goals, and like I went to the Atacama Desert in November 2015. Richard Donovan, Polar Running Ventures, he organises these races. He also does the World Marathon Challenge, and I actually kind of got so fearful that I actually wasn't going to go. So I tried to say to myself, right, look, calm down, you'll be fine, like just maybe do something relaxing, because I was flying out. the following day. So that, the day before, I went to the swimming pool. Swimming around the swimming pool anyway, and this guy started talking to me. And because of my bad sight, like I kind of more see colours and shapes, and like bright natural light is very difficult for me. I prefer like artificial type of light.
That's interesting. Okay.
I can describe my eye conditions in a minute, but anyway, so I was in this swimming pool and this guy comes over, starts swimming beside me, and he sounded very much like Bertie Ahern. So I was kind of saying to myself, would this be a compliment or an insult to tell him that he sounded like Bertie Ahern? Right. So I was saying in my head, right, will I tell him this or not? And then I said, okay, I'll just say it. And then I said, like, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you sound very much like Bertie Ahern. And then he said, that's because I am Bertie Ahern. So then I was just like, well, what do I say now? Like, what do you talk about now?
That's fantastic.
So we were just swimming there, and then I just said, oh, by the way, I'm going to Atacama Desert tomorrow. This is why I'm in the swimming pool. And I can't even fully remember what I started saying, but like just to get over that awkward silence, I just started talking a lot.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
It just shows the power of networking, that you can meet anybody, anywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. So long as you're out there,
yeah,
you've got to be out there. Before we sort of, there's two last questions I'd like to ask you, but you did mention you'd like to tell us a little about your visual impairment.
So I was born visually impaired, so I have aniridia, coloboma, nystagmus and glaucoma. So aniridia is where you take in too much light. I don't have the coloured part of my eye, so it's like all my eye is kind of exposed. If you take off the coloured part of your eye, whether it's green, blue or brown, you take light through the pupil, which is the centre of the eye. But if you take off all that coloured part, then your eye then is all black, and then all light would go through all your eyes. So it's like an open camera lens. So that's why like I squint a lot, and basically I take in a lot more light than you. So a lot of people think about blindness as in darkness, whereas with me, I just suffer too much from light. If you can imagine a car coming towards you with its full floodlights on, and that's shining into your eyes all the time. That type of dazzling sensation, that's what I get all the time. Like even these lights here in the room, if I look at the lights, there's all rays coming out of the lights. When I tell people this, they think I'm hallucinating. So that's the aniridia. Coloboma is a part missing of the eye, which is my iris. Nystagmus is shaking of the eyes. So basically there might be one step, whereas I might see two, or vice versa. With that as well, I don't see depth. So to me, a lot of things look flat, whereas there might be depth there, a step there. And then the coloboma is too much pressure in the eye. So that's all since birth, and everybody in my family are visually impaired as well. For me, like, it has its limitations being visually impaired, but like, it's like a lot of people say to me, oh, like, how do you find being visually impaired? But like, I've never lived in a fully sighted world, so I can't fully compare it, because I've never been in a fully sighted world. And a lot of people also ask me about the World Marathon Challenge. Oh, that must have been really, really difficult. But for me, the World Marathon Challenge, doing 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days, wasn't even that difficult, because, and I don't say that arrogantly, but for me, like, my life has all been about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I experience so much adversity on a daily basis in terms of my disability, in terms of bullying, ignorant people, fighting for my rights, navigating the streets, if there's different building works, simple things of being in the supermarket and they changing the prices and making prices smaller, or changing layout, so all those things. So like, basically with the World Marathon Challenge, there was a finish line. With my disability, there's no finish line. So that's why I suppose and I suppose I was told that by the age of 21 I'd go totally blind. Now that hasn't happened. I use a white cane, I don't use a guide dog. Sometimes, like, if there's a stretch of road, I try and maybe have a small bit of independence and try and maybe go out and just run that stretch of road if I can, from maybe A to a B. But like, I can't go into races by myself. I can't drive. Like, I could sit here and list to you all the things I can't do, but I suppose I try not to focus on the things I can't do, because I think then that kind of makes me feel kind of too depressed in myself. And like, even with the World Marathon Challenge, whether you have vision impairment or not, at the end of the World Marathon Challenge, I was expecting to feel sad that it was over, because I had been preparing for that for a full year in advance. I was expecting it to be sad, but like, it's kind of like what you talk about, like athlete depression type of when an event is over. I was expecting sadness to come maybe in a week or a month or 3 months, but it actually came the minute I went over the finish line.
Wow.
And when I went over the finish line, I put my head into my hands, and everybody thought I was kind of like crying with relief that it was all over, crying with gladness that I just got a Guinness World Record. But I was actually crying because to me then, that was the end. But then I suppose John, who runs with me, who's my run coach and guide runner, he kind of said, Sinead, it's not the end, it's the end of this chapter.
Correct.
And then I suppose in that moment you don't really want to hear that, you just want to feel sad. But like if there had been an 8 continent or an 8 marathon, I would have done that, because like for me, like you just got into that routine every day of doing that. So I believe though, like with our goals in life, fear stops us from doing our goals.
Oftentimes. And that's why, if I may, that's why I find your story so fascinating. I think our viewers will too, because we all struggle with fear, and you struggle with fear, but you just get up every day and you overcome it in small ways or big ways.
I think fear contracts us, and fear makes us be smaller. And I think you should embrace fear, and when you embrace fear, that makes you bigger. So don't allow the fear contract you and be small, but to embrace it. And I suppose the 3 stages of what I try to do with fear is basically feel it, feel and acknowledge it, then face it, and then embrace it.
Lovely.
And so that's kind of how I try and do it. And it's about having courage. Courage has a ripple effect. Once you show courage, it ripples around, and then you kind of inspire others. So.
And that's exactly why you're, I believe, in exactly the right profession by being a professional speaker, because your story will empower others.
Well, like I suppose for me, I have to kind of hold back. Like there was a time when I did a speech, I don't know, would you say it was an embarrassing moment or not, but I did do a speech, and there was a lot of summer interns there, right? And I knew that they had just been handed this by their parents. They didn't
handed
the opportunity to get in there, and through connections, through networking or whatever. And I was doing audience participation, and this guy didn't want to really get up and do the audience participation. So having learnt about him, I had learnt that basically he had been given a lot of things all throughout life, and I was just sitting thinking to myself, right, okay, you're fully sighted, you're sitting there, you're in a fantastic company, I'm asking you for 2 minutes to get up on stage to do a task. I am visually impaired, I ran on a treadmill for 12 solid hours. I'm asking you again. So like, I suppose sometimes it annoys me when fully sighted people don't participate. But like when you're talking about being a professional speaker, you can't let that anger come across. So, but in that speech, I think that was what. I don't really get angry during my speeches, but that was one speech where I got very angry, and I had to really have a poker face in that speech. So you learn.
Don't beat up your clients. Probably not a good idea.
No.
Anyway, so you know, I think that my career changed the moment I met a man on the train, which is this pivotal moment in my career and my life. Do you have one of those moments, one moment that everything hinged upon?
No, because I think that I have pivotal moments, all different moments that has struck me throughout my life, but no one moment that everything centers on it. Like, for example, there a few years ago, a very, very close friend of our family died, and like for me, again, it comes back to gratitude, realizing that kind of don't sweat the small stuff. So that'd be something. And then even at 17,
that's the point. That's the moment that
for me was the pendulum and the pendulum swing, and like I suppose just kind of getting back up, like kind of like another pivotal moment for me was when in 2009, when I like really worked hard to become a qualified solicitor, qualified in March 2009. In 2009, the crash happened in Ireland, and 1 month later, I was let go from my job.
Wow.
So I spent 7 years to get to that moment.
My goodness.
To get to that moment, and then I was let go because of the fact that I was in the public sector, in the legal aid board, and anybody on a temporary contract couldn't have their contract renewed because of the embargo. So when you work up to that moment and then realise, okay, I'm fired now, or well, not fired, but you're let go from your job. So actually, and interlinked with that, a pivotal moment would be that when I didn't get that job, then I tried to get other ways to get a job as a solicitor, because I really badly wanted a job as a solicitor. So I went to the Law Reform Commission, got a voluntary internship with them, travelled up on the train, up and down for 6 months, got up every morning at 4 a.m, didn't get home until 11 at night. Did that Monday to Friday for 6 months. That was in 2011 or 2010. 2011 I was in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform in Dublin. 2012 I was doing a lot of voluntary work, and also in 2012 I got a job as a solicitor. And I actually always thought in my head, if I get a job as a solicitor on South Mall in Cork, I have made it, right? So I had this so much built up in my head. It was kind of like, oh, if I win the lotto, I'll be happy. And I got this job as a solicitor on South Mall in Cork, and then I kind of said, is this it? And it didn't actually, I had built it up so much in my head to be something, I was bored by it.
It was a letdown,
and yeah, I had built it, so I'm not, like, no disrespect to lawyers out there, but like, I didn't feel fulfilled. So again, that was a pivotal moment for me to realise that sometimes we can build so much up in our own heads about happiness, and that when we get to it, then when it doesn't turn out, so why not just be happy for today? Because you don't know if you have happiness for tomorrow. Yeah,
well said, well said. But I also think the universe, if I may say, had different plans for you anyway.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
I think, I think having Dr. Sinead Kane hidden in the back of an office somewhere, rooting through files, I don't think would serve the world very well. Anyway, what's next, if I may ask? What's next? What's your 2020 vision?
Well, I don't know, I think I'm the type of individual, I don't know, will I be as a speaker this time next year, because, not because of being a bad speaker, but because of the fact that, like, I get bored very easily, and I like being challenged. So I like to try and challenge myself in different ways. So you never know, maybe politics. You never know. We'll see how the speaking goes. You never know, I might go back to being a solicitor. Again, I'm not quite sure. And you never know, there might be a book in me. Might kind of start spending time. I might start spending time on a book, like so. Because I suppose for me, if I am to do a book, I want to make sure that the knowledge is there, the proper knowledge for people. So kind of watch space. Sure, if any of your listeners feel that they have an opening of somewhere, they can send their queries to me, and sure, I can consider it.
Fabulous. Yeah, we'll give all the details there for everybody.
I think as well, like, what I also want to do is do more travelling as well, learn about more different cultures, etc. And I want to do that through racing.
Fantastic. Well, I've no doubt there's a book in you, and I'd say the problem is it's not just one book. I think there are many books in Sinead Kane. You've lived so many lives already, and many more to come. So, Dr. Sinead Kane, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us here today.
And I give you this brochure there.
Wonderful.
It's more
Thank
about
you. Wonderful. Folks, there you have it. Dr. Sinead Kane will give you all the details at the bottom of the blog. So once again, thank you, Dr. Sinead Kane. An absolute pleasure. And if I may just thank you all for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. Hope and trust, as ever, you got something from it. And my very best on your behalf to Sinead in her future endeavours. See you here again sometime soon. Take care. Bye for now. Would you like to feature in a Coffee with Colm interview? To be able to use this very powerful medium to tell your story, then send us an email to colm@colmobrien.motivation.com.